Hey everybody, I'm the Indomitable Black Man, and I am coming to you with a very heavy episode. It's kind of weird what's been going on lately in the world of politics, but it's even worse in regards to children. We're gonna talk about that today. First up, if you haven't seen my TikTok video, my most recent TikTok video, I stitched a senator. I want to say a senator from Minnesota who said that he's never seen a Minnesotan. Minnesota? Which guy be from Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Minnesotanite. Somebody from Minnesota. He's never seen. Call him what?
I call him Pop.
I call it soda. He's never seen a person from Minnesota starve or go hungry. And he even goes on to say that hunger is a subjective term. And while I can understand that he thinks that hunger is subjective, I'm pretty sure that when we're talking about children who are going 8 hours on 2 meals, usually just one, and then sometimes don't go home and eat until the next day, I think that's a different type of hunger. I think that's the hunger that we all objectively understand is a detriment, if you know what I mean. And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, at least the first part of it. Then we also have this issue with the Arkansas governor, Sarah Huckabee. I never liked this woman. She looks like a very wonderful person, but not a person that I personally want to meet. I wish that we did not share the same timeline, but here we are. She's trying to loosen, and this isn't just her state. This is one of many American states that is trying to loosen the labor laws, which for children, and that's ridiculous to me. So they're trying to lower and loosen those labor requirements for minors under 16. That make sense for me, because I'm having a hard time with that. Make it make sense. And I find that to be the weirdest thing, because let's not act like there hasn't been a history of the exploitation, mistreatment, and abuse of these children for hundreds of years in American history. And thank God we came up with labor laws that could stop it. And now we're trying to loosen that restriction. Then, to add insult to injury, the next thing I want to talk about are drag queens and them being banned in a lot of places, or people pushing to ban drag queens from being anywhere near children, and the hypocrisy I find with that. I'm a person who believes in keeping the same energy, and I'm like, you'll send kids to a church where the pastor is a known pedophile touching on little kids, but people who are dressed up as the opposite gender or sex is seen as detrimental to your child. Make it make sense. I don't understand. You'll beat your kids, but won't let a drag queen, read to your child. Increasing literacy, you hit your child. Reading to your child, you beat your child and send your child to places where your children are not always safe. You yourself may not be safe, but we're going to get into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about, oh my gosh. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the whole issue with the food. Now, first, let's start off with some statistics. I actually did a project about this about a year ago for one of my education classes. 1 in 5 children in America are facing starvation. 1 in 5. If you see 5 kids, 1 of them is facing starvation. And everyone wants to say that it's on the parents, it really takes a village to raise these children. It is not something that everybody can just do. It takes a village. Children are expensive. Parents have to work to provide, and they don't always have the means or the ability in that moment to provide for their children. And they go to school, and they're in school 8 hours a day, maybe even more, especially if they're doing an extracurricular activity. And if these kids are coming home and they're facing this starvation where they're not eating at home and they don't eat again until the next day, and they still are being turned away because they don't have enough money for free or reduced lunch, or their families fall into that gap where they don't have they make enough money to not be on the in the free reduced lunch, but they don't have enough to give their child money for lunch, they're going to starve. They're not going to have food. And not all of them have programs where these kids can eat over the weekend. And it's disgusting. And so let's talk about some of the things that can happen as a result of facing starvation, being a child that's facing starvation. One of the things that you are going to face are behavioral issues. I have a kid right now in one of my classes who is currently in a he doesn't have housing security. He's home insecure. I'll just say that. And he needs food. So he comes into class and he's still hungry. He'll have lunch or breakfast, but he's still hungry. And we don't know how long he's going in between meals. So when he gets to school, he's still hungry. He starts to act out because he's hungry, right? You have kids who are sleepy. When I get hungry, I get sleepy. And when I get sleepy, I'm not focused on nothing else, but I need food. I have no energy. And another thing with behaviors, you have kids who they get hangry, right? You're going to have a kid who they haven't eaten all day. And because they haven't eaten, their brain is focused on the food, that survival mentality, that amygdala part of your brain that's focused on that food. Then we focus on that. And when somebody is antagonizing them, they're taking them away from what they're feeling in that moment, which is to get some food. They're going to lash out. They're going to become aggressive. They're going to hit somebody more than likely, or they're going to have a really snippy attitude with a teacher or another kid or something like that. It's not going to end well. It causes behavioral issues. If your child is going hungry, you're causing a behavioral issue. Point blank, period. Point blank, period. In addition to that, because they're having these behavioral issues, they're going to start getting in trouble, and they're going to be sent to the principal's office or the dean's office with referral. That's put on their record. You're penalizing a child because they're hungry, something that is preventable, something that can be changed. One of the things that we stressed when I was in my education classes was that find an easy way to do something. Like if you can tell that the kid is just hungry, just give them something to eat. Always have like some crackers on deck. I spend $80 plus to $100 every week for snacks for my students, and I run out really quickly because they're always freaking hungry. They always run out. Mr. H, you got some crackers? Mr. H, you got some gummies? Mr. H, you got a granola bar? All of this. They always want food, and I don't have a problem providing it, but I can only provide so much in their snacks. It's not food. It's not substantial, and the food they do get, it's still not substantial. It's barely enough. It's just enough to keep them going. But when they get home, they're going to be famished. And I work in a middle school, so these kids are always hungry anyway because they're growing. They're going to adolescence. They always want to eat. And so the fact that we don't have free lunch, free breakfast, that's ridiculous. And then what happens with these kids on the weekend and they still don't have food? Like, the economy can be good, but people still be struggling and suffering and starving. It's a known thing. So another thing that not eating can affect is your cognitive development. The cognitive development of a child is very important because in these formative years, they're gathering information from every type of stimuli in an environment. And if they are hungry, their brain is not going to have the energy to synthesize all of that information, comprehend it, archive it, turn it into working. It's not going to work, right? You're going to have kids who are starving, who cannot do the processes necessary to be educated. They're focused on a different thing. They're focused on the fact that they're hungry. I'm hungry right now, and I'm slipping up over my words because I'm so hungry. My brain is diverting all of its energy to replenishing its nourishment. If it doesn't have that, nothing's going to really happen. It's going to be a fight to learn. So when a kid is in an environment where they feel safe, where they have food, where they have shelter, where they know that they're around people who actually care about them, they're going to thrive. When you have the Maslow's hierarchy of needs met, you have put kids in the perfect condition to learn effectively and efficiently. But it seems as though we have people who are not really here for that. We have people who want to hinder the excellence of people. That's why I am a firm believer that a lot of education is elitist, because we'll sit here and we'll come up with laws and policies that just stop teachers from really teaching. And a lot of people think that teachers are leaving the schools because kids are bad. That is not why people are leaving school. Teachers love the kids. A lot of them, I say majority, a healthy majority, love the kids. The problem is you either have administration who's pushing back, you have parents that don't know anything and are trying to push back on the teachers, or you have policies that are they're not making it beneficial to want to stay. So when you have a high turnover rate in a district or in a state, it's not because of the kids. It's because of the powers that be that are hindering these people from doing their job. So if you're stopping food from being in a classroom, if you're stopping children from being fully sustained with nourishment, they're not going to learn. They're going to cause problems and disruptions, period. Another thing we got to look at is the physical development of a child. Like, if they're not eating and they're malnourished, the problems that can cause is enormous. Me being a kid who was malnourished, not because I didn't have food in the fridge. I had food in the fridge. I just also used to eat sweets, but we ain't gonna talk about that. I would also eat everything that was on my plate. But there were times where I was growing so fast, I would be busy doing other things, hyper fixated on something, and I would forget to eat, or I didn't eat enough, and I became very malnourished. And what that can do is that causes your immune system to be suppressed. You don't have the nutrients necessary to maintain a healthy immune system, so you get sick. When you get sick, you miss days of school, you miss key information that you need that's foundational for the next skills that you're going to be learning about in the next few weeks because you were sick because you ain't eat. In addition to that, you're not developing healthily, normally. Like, it was hard for me to put on muscle mass. It's still hard for me to put on muscle. Look at it, I'm skinnier than a rail. And it's all because I did not eat in those formative years. So I'm playing catch up with my body. People develop later because they can be malnourished. There are some girls who, because they haven't eaten in so long, they don't menstruate like that. Like, it's wild out here. We have to be feeding these children. And then think about the other implications that go along with that. If they're not developing cognitively or they're not developing physically, they're going to start falling behind other kids, or they're going to be a target for other kids. Imagine you being poor and hungry and there's nothing you can do about it. And you're being bullied for being either too small or too dumb to pass something. Like, you're setting kids up for failure and you think that's okay. It's disgusting. So, like, this guy, the guy who's doing all of this is Senator Steve Drazkowski. And when you look it up, he's voting against free school lunch. It baffles me because it's like we're in this really weird dystopia where it feels like a dream, like the American dream deterred. It doesn't register with me fully that this is happening. It's like, it doesn't feel real. It feels like I'm reading a book like Hunger Games where people are having to beg the government to give food. Like, Rome didn't have a whole welfare program where it was giving out bread and circuses all the time. It was a whole edict. Panem et circenses. That's been a thing, but we're not going to do that for children. And I guarantee you his children get some of the best education in the world. I guarantee you the people who are making these laws are people whose children will never have to be impacted by them. It's disgusting. It is a form of elitism. They're trying to keep children from being successful adults, but then also punish them when they're not successful and they have to do what they need to do to survive. This is why I tell everybody, it is all a clock. These systems are clocks that are all working together to keep people where they are. And we have to nip it in the bud. You can't sit here and think a child is going to be successful when they don't have the basic necessities. And if somebody says to me, oh, well, I have a friend who went through X, Y, and Z and they became successful, that is a 1 in a million chance. There are 330 million people in America, and most of them are underneath the poverty threshold or very close to it. Everybody is one medical bill away from being homeless, if we're keeping it a buck. And the fact that we have the ability to prevent most of the things that we complain about, most of the things we're concerned about, and we don't do it is disgusting to me. Now, switching gears, let's talk about what's going on in Arkansas. Because this, oh my God. And it's not just Arkansas, it's so many other states. Minnesota is another one of these states. They're trying to loosen child labor laws. Arkansas specifically, with good old Sarah Huckabee, she's trying to loosen child labor laws so that 13 or 14-year-old children can work without having any type of letter or form from the Department of Labor, without having parental consent. And I can understand wanting your child to have some responsibility and make a living for themselves and go seek after that American dream and start young. But I'm also like, we have labor laws, because I remember reading books like The Jungle by Sinclair. What was it, Upton Sinclair? Where children, food, it was such horrible conditions, working conditions. And we're trying to put kids back in that child. We already don't always follow OSHA requirements anyway. So you're going to put children in these environments. Like, let's take a little stroll down U.S. history lane, and let's look at some child labor issues, which is why we came up with child labor law. Bobbin boys, kids who were working in these textile factories with bobbins, would regularly lose appendages while working. Yes, their tiny hands were nimble enough to go in between this cloth to do things, but they were also losing body parts while they were at it. Let's talk about the kids in the coal mines who were developing lung diseases for going in these coal mines for hours at a time, coming out with black lung, dying very early because they were forced to be in those conditions. Now, I already don't like coal in general. I'm claustrophobic AF, but the fact that you're putting kids in those environments, should something happen, they are trapped down there, they're dying. What? The Department of Labor put out a report where 102, was it 102? I think it was 102. 102, let me look it up real quick. Let's see. The Department of Labor released the results of an investigation that found 102 children aged between 13 to 17 illegally working dangerous jobs like cleaning meat processing equipment. 10 of those children were working at facilities in Arkansas, according to the investigation, and 25 were working in Minnesota, another state considering looser child labor laws. They really do not care about kids. They are really just these dispensable little things. They're like Dobby from Harry Potter. They're just like these little house elves that they can do whatever your beck and call is. It's weird. Like, there is no sense of ethics because you're so concerned about making your buck. Now, I want to back up a little bit and let's actually talk about what the real issue is. And y'all gonna think I'm gonna get a little political, but I want us to follow the breadcrumbs real quick. Last year, I remember hearing about how the population was on decline. And I was like, that's weird. That's suspicious. Because right after that, we start hearing about all of these states that were starting to ban abortion. You had trigger laws, so laws that would take effect as soon as the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. And what happened? Then you have people trying to loosen child labor laws. You have kids not being able to eat, which means they're not going to succeed that well, or they're going to have to fight really hard to do so. I really feel like, and I just go with me here. I really feel like they're really just trying to enforce a large labor force. I really feel like they're trying to have a population boom to replenish the people that were lost during COVID. I believe that the concept of a declining population, especially for a specific demographic, has terrified people because in addition to that, what's up, Jamil? You also have, and now we can sit here and be like, we can recognize that we're declining in population, but we have to start asking ourselves why. I always tell my people when I'm teaching them anything on how to work with their kid, you can't just solve a symptom. You have to deal with the root. The root of the issue is people aren't trying to have kids because these little kids are expensive. Like look at inflation. Nobody's really buying houses like that. Nobody's out here trying to spend all this money because inflation is so high. Bills are so high. These can't be the same bills our parents had. They can't be. They can't be the same bills. And then you have boomers like, oh, when I was your age. Yes, when you were our age, you was only like working a part-time job and you could pay for college. We don't have that luxury. So when we're in debt, we're traumatized because our parents ain't had no sense. It was beating us like a redheaded stepchild or like a slave. And then we get out into the workforce and we have people who are manipulating us, exploiting us for our money. And then the price of milk is like $8,000. Yeah. I ain't finna have no kid. People look at me now. Do you have kids? No, I ain't got no kids. Kids are expensive. I'm broke and toxic. How you be toxic and broke? Me, most millennials, we ain't trying to have no kids. So of course the population is going to decline. That's just what's going to happen. I'm not finna bring a child into the world that I can't take care of. I'm not finna do it. Other people can do it. I'm not finna do it. And when they do, they set themselves up for failure. Other people are setting them up for failure. The whole system is rigged to set you up for failure and then mock you for failing. That's the biggest. The American government, the American society as a whole is like an abusive, narcissistic spouse. Now let's move over to, I think this is the weirdest one of them all. Banning drag queens and banning kids from seeing drag shows. Now, my problem is a lot of people don't know what drag shows are. Now, I'm from Atlanta. I grew up in Atlanta. I've been around the LGBTQ community my entire life. I go to drag nights down the street from my house almost every Tuesday. I love it. I know all the drag queens there, and they are phenomenal. They are wonderful people. They're very friendly, and they put on a good show. I'm also an artist. I sing, I do theater professionally, and I know artistry when I see it. And when I tell you that there is major artistry in the drag community, there is. And it also has a rich history because you had drag starting out. First off, drag, let's keep it a buck. Drag is very old. Like, drag isn't something that's new. People have been doing drag for hundreds, if not thousands of years, dressing up as the opposite gender or the opposite sex. That has been around, and we're acting like it's brand new and it's like this whole epidemic, and it's like, no, where have you been? Like, no, this has been a thing. What? Like, we sitting here getting mad because we see drag queens on TV shows and stuff, but we all forget how every cartoon has some male character or male presenting character dress up as a girl. Like, what? Are we going to forget how some USO shows had drag queens in the shows? How are we going to pick and choose? And then they say, oh, well, it's for the kids. We want to protect the kids. But wait. Y'all are the same people that go to church and know the pastor is doing something nasty to some of them kids in the back. And you'll still go to that church. You'll still let your kid hang out with that pastor. You'll still let that happen. You'll still let your child be around that weird cousin or that weird uncle or that weird auntie. You'll still take your child to Hooters to go take pictures with these girls. You will still want to take your child to a strip club. You will still be like, I'm not finna say the name because I ain't trying to get lit up like the 4th of July. But you will be that like that one celebrity that let his child receive from an adult. You'll still play their music. Where you can't have selective outrage like that. That's not how this works. You need to keep the same energy. Now, I want to be clear that what people are confusing with drag shows are like strip teases, and they're not the same thing. There are some shows that drag queens do that are for adults, and they have, this is 18 plus. Like, not with parental consent, 18 plus. You can't come in here unless you're 18 and up. That's normal. You wouldn't take your child to that. But then you also have the ones that are family friendly, where it's just a man dressed up as a woman or a woman dressed up as a man or a non-binary dressed up as a non-binary, whatever they want to dress up as. And in those instances, you have gowns, you have dresses, you have tuxedos, you have so many different things where they get to show off a talent, show off their dancing skills, show off their lip syncing skills. It's so much more than what people are making it out to be. And because they don't know, because it's something new and something that they don't understand, they're naturally afraid of it. And they're trying to hide their children from it because they don't want to corrupt their children. But you're doing everything to corrupt them from the womb to the tomb. Like, they can't eat. Like, you'll protect them in the womb, but then as soon as they come out, they can't eat. We can't take care of them. If you get welfare, you're lame, we're going to shame you. If you get WIC, you're lame, we're going to shame you. If your child gets sick or you can't breastfeed, you're lame, we're going to blame you. All of these different things that go on when they get to school, if they're not behaving well enough, forget what environmental issues are there. Forget any type of exceptionality. If your child is misbehaving, we're going to shame you, we're going to throw you out. All of these things that happen to these children that are caused not by drag queens. You're looking for the problems in the places where there are none. Do I agree that kids should go to every drag show? Absolutely not. There are some drag shows, like I said, that are 18 plus. However, at the same time, you're still taking your kid to places that are explicitly 18 plus, and they are bending the rules for you to do them, and there's a problem. And then you wonder why your kid grows up to do and be everything that you don't want them to be. Well, what else did you expect them to be? You set them up for that. It don't make sense. It keep the same energy is all I really want. I just want people to keep the same energy. Last thing I want to talk about, and I think this is really more sad than anything else. I want to talk about a video I saw earlier of a woman who was setting up this bulletproof section of her classroom. It's basically a section of a wall that you pull forward and it turns into a room that's a safe room that's bulletproof. Why do we need that? And not why do we need it as in why does it exist? Why should it have to exist? America has the unique problem of having school pew-pewers, mass pew-pewers. We've had them for a very long time. And we continue to do it, like to the point where kids are making jokes about it because they can't process it. To the point where teachers start to have panic attacks. To the point where, like, it's sad. Like, I remember seeing this one video, this dude who was saying how he went to a training and he was taught that if you see a kid who's been hit in the chest, leave him and work on another child that has a wound somewhere else because that kid is probably going to die out and that's a waste of your time. Hearing stories about this happening is disgusting, and we're coming up with ideas like we're still putting Band-Aids on a gunshot wound. It don't make sense. You cannot have a gangrenous, festering sore and you put a Band-Aid over it and think that that's going to solve the issue. That's not how this works. To change a behavior, you have to go to the antecedent. Why is it happening? Has anybody sat to actually think, why is this happening? And more than why is it happening, why have we not done the legislation necessary? Why isn't there a task force charged to determine why is this happening and then stop it from happening? We know it's two things. We know it's access to guns, and we also know it's mental health. There are crazy behind people out here who should not have access to weapons because they have been traumatized in their life. We know this. In my book, I talk about Nicholas Cruz. I talk about Eileen Wuornos. I talk about the very traumatic childhood that they both had. There are signs. There are definite signs. Matter of fact, Nicholas Cruz, he went after the whole shooting went down. He went to Walmart and he saw another student. And the student was like, hey, there was a shooting at the school. I thought if anybody would have done it, would have been you. Little did that person know that it actually was. There were signs that were ignored because we're so focused more on preserving the rights that we think we have that will impede the life of someone else. You're inconvenienced by something. So that means that somebody else should lose their life. 45 minutes. It was 45 minutes before Uvalde police officers actually got into the school to do something. A lady ran in after being arrested, saved her son and her son's friend. In the time it took for the cops to even organize to go in there. They stood there for 45 minutes. They don't care about kids. Kids are so They're seen idealistically as these wonderful little angels that are all innocent and pure, but then in the same breath turn around and think that these kids are expendable. Make it make sense. Somebody please make it make sense, because it don't. It's trauma begetting trauma, and instead of us dealing with the root and ending the trauma so it doesn't come back up, we let it fester. That's the American way. And until things change, we're going to continue to see a decline of America, and we're only going to continue to make excuses and put bandages on it instead of taking off the bandage, cleaning the wound, doing the surgery, and treating it correctly. It's wild out here. It's wild out here, y'all. Listen, I'm the Indomitable Black Man. I thank you for sticking on and watching the show. If you have any questions, if you would like to talk about a different topic, if you would like to join me on a topic, if you would like me to shout your name out, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Let me know how you're feeling. Have a good one.